Have you ever been on a team where everything just clicks? Where moving forward feels almost effortless, like the wind is at your back? It really got me thinking about this fundamental choice we make as leaders. Do we try to force progress, or do we create the conditions where it just happens? That's what we're going to dig into. Because this is it, right? This is the core question for anyone in a leadership role. We all want to get our teams from point A to point B. But how we do that? Well, that changes everything. Is it really about just applying more pressure? Or is there another way, something more effective and, frankly, more human? And that brings us to the big idea for this whole explainer. I want you to think about leadership as one of two things. On one hand, you've got the tow rope. This is leadership as brute force. And on the other hand, you have the tailwind, leadership as influence. Now look, they both can get you where you're going, but the feeling of that journey, it's night and day. So let's start with the one most of us are probably familiar with, the tow rope. This is that old school approach that relies on top-down authority. And just like the name says, it creates a whole lot of drag. See, this whole model is built on a foundation of command and obedience. It literally works by creating tension, pulling people along with constant performance-based pressure. And what do you get? A culture of compliance. People do what they're told, sure, but that's it. They rarely do more. It might tick the boxes, but man, it is exhausting for absolutely everyone involved. Okay, so if the tow rope is all about friction and drag, what's the alternative? Well, it's about learning to catch a tailwind. And let's be super clear, this isn't about giving up your authority. It's about transforming it into its highest, most powerful form. So what's the secret sauce of the tailwind model? It really boils down to two things: influence and trust. These become the new foundation, completely replacing that old structure of command and control. In this world, your leadership doesn't come from your job title. It comes from the genuine confidence and relationships you've built. And this is the goal. This is what we're aiming for. Just think about that for a second. The ability to inspire people to act because they want to, not because they feel like they have to. That single shift changes the entire game. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Does this mean I lose control? And that's a common fear, but it's a total misconception. This isn't about losing authority at all. It's about refining your power, turning it from a blunt instrument into something far more effective and, honestly, more respected. What you're doing is swapping out the entire engine of your team. The old one, it runs on control and pressure. This new engine, though, it runs on a totally different fuel: empowerment and a real shared sense of purpose. It's that massive pivot from "you must do this" to "look at what we can do together." All right, this all sounds pretty good in theory, doesn't it? But how do we actually do it? How can you, as a leader, start building your own tailwind? Let's get down to the brass tacks. It all begins with a fundamental shift in your mindset. You have to believe this deep down. Real, lasting productivity isn't squeezed out of people through pressure. No, it's cultivated. It grows naturally in an environment of trust, like a plant in good soil. And once you believe that, it sets off this beautiful chain reaction. It all starts when you begin to design your systems, your processes, your rules, to actually serve the people doing the work. Because when those systems are supportive, not restrictive, individuals feel that trust, and they feel empowered to take ownership, to take initiative, to start leading themselves. And what happens next is almost magic. Those empowered people, they naturally start to align their work with the bigger mission. They contribute to a meaningful purpose because they finally feel like they're a part of creating it. So what's your job in all of this? Well, it's not to pull that heavy tow rope anymore. Your job is to be the architect of the environment. First, you have to actively signal confidence in your team. Show them you trust them. Second, you have to create the right space and structure and the right spirit for them to flourish. And third, your focus shifts completely. You stop micromanaging tasks and start focusing on creating the absolute best conditions for success. You become the gardener, not the drill sergeant. And when you get this right, when you really build that tailwind, the result is so much more than just better numbers. What you get is a deep, profound cultural shift across your entire organization. What you're fundamentally changing is what motivates people to show up every day. You're shifting away from a culture that runs on performance-based pressure, and you're moving toward a culture fueled by purpose-based contribution. The why we're doing this suddenly becomes way more important than the what we're doing.
The culture that grows out of this isn't some rigid, brittle hierarchy. It's a living, breathing structure built on trust, courage, and real human connection. And in that kind of environment, work becomes something that is inspired, not intimidated. It's something people are genuinely drawn to.
So let's just end right where we started, with a pretty simple choice. As you think about your own leadership style, just ask yourself this one question. Are you pulling a tow rope, creating tension and drag to force progress? Or are you building a tailwind, creating the conditions that help everyone soar together? The choice, as always, is yours.